Hello guys, welcome to the session. So today we have Federico from OpenWISP as he is a GSoC mentor and admin with OpenWISP organization, and we have Gagan who was GSoC student this year. Yay! And we guys are very excited about this session. So this session will be targeted more toward how to get the general exposure and get involved specifically in OpenWISP. So we have already done a lot of sessions targeted toward the general approach of selecting the organization and participating with them, but most of you have asked about specifically with that you guys do not get comfortable about how to specifically target a particular organization and how to get started with them. So specifically for those type of queries that you guys can have, and specifically those awesome organization who are willing to start way before the event, and specifically during this month of Hacktober, where you can get additional goodies and additional swag by participating in the same event. uh, we are providing this information about connecting with OpenWISP and participating with them, joining with their projects and participating in their multiple issues, so that you can get the growth, you can get the learning with OpenWISP, and at the same time you can have the exposure how to exactly continue with the GSoC procedure as well. So you'll be getting the both benefits. Just 1 second. You will be getting the benefits of both dimensions. You will be getting the benefit of contributing, at the same time you will be getting the benefit of proceeding with the same organization for long term. So Federico, welcome, and let's put up some light to the students.
Thank you for having us, Anuj. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here and to explain and tell our story, explain how our software works, and what can I say? I'm pleasure to be helping students in getting to open source. That's something I've been doing for a long time now. My first Google Summer of Code as a mentor was in 2012. So it's been 8 years now. Not straight in a row. I didn't participate every year, but I lost count. I'm at least 8 or something like that. Also some Google Coding runs, which now unfortunately ended, but it was a nice experience as well. Different programs, similar goals, different ways, different people, different ages, different ways of working, but always the same goal. And let me close this introduction with one suggestion for all the students. I've seen many students participating with good spirit, but I've seen also many others which were not, I think they did not understand what open source is all about. So open source is not about closing as many issues as scoring points or scoring issues or competing with others. It's not about making money. I mean, it's good to be paid, but the primary goal is to make something useful. So if you make something useful, then it's natural that you will find, money follows. You make something useful, money follows. You get support from people, from companies. You can open your own business. That's great. But it's important to understand the spirit. The spirit is to understand that technology is important for us as a species, and it's very useful to make it more accessible, because otherwise you have companies or monopolies which take control of specific things that are very important for society. And open source kinds of helps with that, because it allows different players to compete, to offer services, to create something useful. So keep in mind this, please. Keep in mind to find your purpose, look for your purpose, experiment with different organizations. My suggestion is, and then you will see, by doing it, you will find out which one you like, being from the technology, from the purpose of the organization, the people in it, and so on. And if you want to try with us, you're welcome to come. We will help you out. Also during this Oktoberfest, we are particularly putting effort into helping out. So reach us, reach Gagan, reach me, reach anybody, and we'll be here for you.
Yeah, great. So one of the questions that we have got is, I have never contributed to OSS before, open source softwares before. Would this event be useful for me? So the answer to that is that yes, it will be useful for you. The only requirement is to have the encouragement and the energy to learn, and Gagan and Federico and all the people from OpenWISP will help you guys out in participating and doing all the things. For the generic resources, you can browse through our channel and understand how exactly GitHub works and these things work. But any specific questions that you have, even though you are very new to the things, you can always ping Gagan, that I'm stuck at these things and I'm stuck at that things. You can always reach him out, and you can always reach out other people in the organization, and they will always help you guys, right? So never worry about that being a beginner, because everyone is beginner at some point, right? So Gagan was beginner in open source 1.5 years back, but he have reached to the level that he is able to guide you through this, right? And Federico, you would have also started at some point way back, right?
I was
So
terrible.
yeah, so so finally we have to start at some point. So don't worry about being a new person, and just keep on growing, just keep on growing. Okay, so my first question is, what exactly is OpenWISP? Because the audience that we have, some of them already know about OpenWISP, some of them are quite new to it. So it would be great if you can elaborate what exactly OpenWISP is.
So OpenWISP is a network management system that allows organizations to deploy and manage their own network. It's focused right now on supporting an operating system that is called OpenWRT. It's a Linux-based distribution, very popular in networking, the networking world. It allows also other systems with the help of a concept called configuration backend. You can imagine OpenWISP as something like WordPress, that if you want to do a blog, if you want to make your own blog, you use WordPress. So if you want to create a network, like for example, imagine you want to establish policies for access to the Wi-Fi of your university, and you want to have a profile for student, a profile for professors, and different profiles have different limits and different rules. They can access different resources of the network. They have different addresses and so on. Then how do you do that? Right now you have to do it manually, and without OpenWISP you would do it manually. You would configure everything. Maybe you would seek help with Ansible or a tool like that, configuration management tool, command line, and so on. But otherwise, now you can do it with OpenWISP. You can set up the configuration in templates. You can script it. You can design hooks. You can still program it to get where you want to, the result you want to get. But at least there's a lot of things that you can do via the web interface. And once the system is configured, you just connect one device. The device registers into the system, and it downloads the default configurations that you prepared, and it brings up everything that it needs to bring up. It was born from the public Wi-Fi industry, which was relatively, it was a new business and industry in 2008, 2009, something like that. And in Italy, in the region of Rome, the local authority pushed for a public network, for a public Wi-Fi network to give access to tourists to the internet. It was a very new thing back then. It was very innovative, and the administration decided that the money that would be spent would be spent to produce open source software. They didn't want to spend public money on proprietary software. It was a very good decision back then, also quite early for the time. So they went for creating an open system, and it was focused only on public Wi-Fi. That's what it could do. It could only do the public Wi-Fi use case, so captive portal, management VPN, and so on. to provide access to tourists that would then have to register, put their phone number, their details, and then they would be able to log in and browse for a limited amount of time the network every day, something like 3 hours, or maybe there was also it depends. Some networks did it for 3 hours, some other put a limit on the gigabyte of traffic, so you could surf the whole day unless you consume more than 3 gigabyte, something like that. And over the years, the number of users and organizations and public administrations started to rise, and they started for asking for more features. So, for example, they started saying, "Why don't we add firmware upgrade? Why don't we add the possibility to control these other features that we need, not only public Wi-Fi? Why can just we control it to? Why can't just use it to control OpenWRT?" So over the years, back then I was working with the company that founded the project, which now it's not working on it anymore. So I am taking the project on my own. What I did was I pushed to rebuild it to overcome the limitations. So we built the second generation, which now it's more generic. It's not only for public Wi-Fi. Basically, imagine Linux, OpenWRT is the distribution. You can do a lot of things with it. You can create IoT networks for monitoring sensors. You can build, for example, SDN on it, software-defined networking. You can use it, just firewall. You can do public Wi-Fi, of course. There's many use cases. There's many things you can do with OpenWRT, many networking use cases. Well, with OpenWISP, you can basically automate the configuration that is sent to OpenWRT, and you can implement all these use cases. And our goal is to, over time, make it easier and easier to do this, because right now it's still not very easy. But with our help, anybody can do it. That's why we have the support channels that are very active. So that's it. So imagine it as I would summarize it as, the WordPress for networks. That's what I'm trying to convey. Or over time, maybe I can find something better than this, because it's to somebody who is not into networking, it may not very, very clear, because the networking has so many different areas, so many different things that you have to do on a network.
Right. Okay, so if for the very specific and the simplest example I can put up, so like if there is a lab environment and the faculty want to control over a specific resources that students can have access to or cannot have access to, they can do this with the help of OpenWISP, right? And if a university want to set up the control over some things like that, these kind of resources should be able to only accessible from this lab only, or these kind of resources should be able to be accessible from these places only or these resources only. So these kind of things we can generate from with the help of OpenWISP.
It makes a lot of sense when you have a number of devices or routers that are high. If you have one or two routers, it won't help you much. But if you have 10, 100, 1,000, then it helps, because it gives you this dashboard through which you can see the situation in the network. You can, for example, the base configuration are shared between, usually these networks, they all have this, the routers are all configured in the same way. They have some bits which change depending on that specific router. It could be just the name or other information. So OpenWISP allows you to structure it in a way that if you need to change the configuration, you only change it in one place in the template, and they all update. Then you want to upgrade the firmware with a few clicks. Once it's configured properly, with a few clicks, you upload the new firmware images and you send it to the devices. So it helps you to manage a number of devices that otherwise it would be a lot of work to do it manually.
Right. So I think a student have asked a question. Obviously, we will be able to cater through that during the demo only. The question is how to study OpenWISP code from scratch. The first point is never try to explore any code from scratch because that will eat your brain up. Because right, Federico, do you suggest a student to read the whole code scratch up?
I wouldn't do it,
Yeah,
but I
right.
mean, if who am I to judge? I mean, if you like to do that, I think there's people who like to. Sometimes I also open a project and just look at the code randomly, but I
Yeah,
don't study the whole code. What I
yeah,
would do is I would try to use it. Okay,
yeah,
first thing, try to use it. Try to understand what it does. Can it do anything useful for you? Well, try to do that.
yes.
Then at that point, once know a little bit more the system, you can open the code and you can try to understand what's going on. And also OpenWISP is modular, so there's no single code base, but there's many different code bases. So you also have to understand the modules, how they work together. You have to understand the framework and the language with which is built. So in the case of OpenWISP, is Python and Django. So you have to have a little bit of knowledge about that. Otherwise, you have to start with steps. First step, language. Do you know the language? Fine. Or if you don't know, study the language. You know the framework, the patterns used, study those. Okay, then you progress. Use it, and maybe you find something that doesn't work for you, or you want to improve, or you want to help fixing a bug. You read the issue in GitHub or whatever issue tracker. The issue will usually give pointers and hints to the parts of code that need to be edited, and then you can start to open those parts and start from there. It's like reverse engineering, slowly, gradually. But yeah, if you want to read it, you can do it, but it will take time, and you will be reading something that I don't know if. I mean, at least I am that way. I am a person that I want to do things that I think I'm going to use that are useful. Otherwise, I'm just reading something that, well, it might be interesting, but if I don't need it, I don't know, that's not so interesting.
In most of cases, it will just overburden you, right? So,
Yeah.
Gagan, how was your first
Uh,
experience when you interacted with the code
yeah.
of
I think as a beginner, I can give you much. I can relate to their perspective a little bit more. So what I generally do, I focus on what I'm working with. Let's say I'm fixing an issue, I will be looking at the code which relates to it, and then gradually look here and there where it is following, etc. So don't study for beginners. I will say don't study the whole code. Just dive in, and with some few iterations, later you will get to understand how the thing is working, and that's how I approached OpenWISP. Which One thing which Federico already mentioned, that OpenWISP is very modular, and that the one thing which I loved about OpenWISP is that the modularity. I didn't ha- I just only had to focus while fixing a bug. I just only had to focus on one of the modules, while at large the whole synchronization thing was getting it in place in itself. So I was adding a feature in one of the modules, and later, after a few releases, it was actually getting involved in the actual software.
great. Gagan, can you also elaborate, in a very small detail structure, what was your project in OpenWest this year?
Yeah, so I was working on the OpenWISP notification module of the OpenWISP. So before that, there were two projects which are interlinked. That was monitoring and notification. So in a network management software, it is very desirable to get monitoring details like what were the CPU usage, memory usage, traffic, ping details, etc. And with monitoring, there comes the burden of notifications. So my project majorly dealt with notifications, and I created this module, which is just like a plugin. So I developed it, and then we plugged into the main module, and it just worked. So that was really something great due to modularity. Yeah. So And
Yeah, one thing I want to say about this is that nowadays it's very popular to develop microservices, and it's like, the important thing is to develop different tools that interact with one another with defined interfaces. If it's a microservice or if it's one service with modules doing it, in the end it doesn't matter. What matters is this thing of decomposing the software in parts, and each part does something specific and can interact with the other parts but in defined ways. And you have to have some kind of hierarchy, right? You have to have the low level modules which don't know anything about the higher level modules, and so on. So there's a hierarchy. There's the modules on one side don't know anything about the others. It's the other that there's modules that extend what the parent modules do. Those ones know the internal of the other's module, but the modules at the top, they don't know. It's like a tree, right? So if you are able to develop something like that, it works pretty well for newcomers. And I experienced it. I mean, I've seen it. That's why I made it, because I saw that it was working. So, and with Gagan and other students, I had the proof, because it helps them to focus on what they have to do without worrying about the rest of the software, which may be huge. But with this architecture, the chances of stuff not going right, of bugs, it's quite limited. It's not 100% sure that you won't affect another module if you are changing one of the parts that are used by the other module, but the chances are really reduced. And in fact, Gagan was able to do pretty well, and he developed. What he did was, there was this monitoring system which had the notification part, the part which basically shows the notifications to the user, sends the emails, and so on. He took that part, he extracted it in its own module, and then now we made this the one base module of OpenWISP, so all the other big modules can use it and can add notifications for the things they need. For example, the controller needs to send notification if a device registered. The monitoring needs to send a notification if the device goes down. Radius, for example, the part which deals with the authentication and authorization, may send a notification if there's an unauthorized access. So notification becomes like a base module that can be used by different other modules. And he was able to extract it from one module, make it a base module, and then integrate it in another module. And one by one, step by step, he started with the extraction. He developed the module. He gained confidence on building and evolving the module. Then, at the end, he integrated this module in the controller, which is the main module.
You're right. One question that is, that obviously we are going to get cater in the last part of the session, that is with the help of demo. The question is, where can a beginner find you guys to start with the contribution to OSS, and would you like to share any profile where we can contact and these kind of things? So guys, we will be coming to that, but that will fall approximately 10 minutes from now, 10 to 15 minutes from now. So you guys have to wait for that, so that there is enough information what exactly the project is, what exactly the organization is, to start with that part where we can really discuss these things. Okay, and there is this link that Federico have provided, so I will put this in the public channel, so you guys can also see this and go to this if you want. I have added it in the chat section. You don't have to go there right away. You can just open it in the side, and you can stick to it later on. Okay. So there is, there are few questions, but specifically what I would like to, go through before that is, you guys have already told us about OpenWISP, what exactly it does, but what are the different projects that are currently public for newcomers to contribute in? So can you provide us a bit variety? What is the different variety that you guys have? What are the different kind of project structures that you guys have in the whole umbrella of OpenWISP?
Didn't understand very well the question. You mean different software modules, different?
Yeah, so something like that.
What
Like,
do you mean
yeah, so
exactly?
there is a complete umbrella of OpenWISP which does, a big work, a big task, but there will be many entry points, right? So, like, you can start from this point or you can start from that point. So, if you are good with this thing, you can have this entry point. If you are
Oh,
good with this thing, you can have this entry point. If you are,
different
yeah, different,
skills,
yeah,
you
different
mean?
skills and different entry points to the project where
Okay.
where students can reach to contribute. So those kind of points, so obviously in the end we will be getting up to a demo, but before that can we have a exposure to different entry points where student can get involved in.
That's a great question. Thank you. One of the advantages, I believe, of contributing and working on OpenWISP, and that's something I liked since the start, is that you can improve your skills really 360 degrees, because OpenWISP touches many things. There's the web interface, there's the deploy part, there's also VPNs, tunnels, a lot of automatic setup of tunnels. I've been just working on a prototype to automate the configuration of WireGuard, which is a new, very popular VPN, a new VPN that is becoming very popular, and I've learned a lot. So every time I work on the automating on one of these technologies. Another one is VXLAN, is another layer 2 encapsulation protocol that I learned just recently. I keep on learning stuff. So I am also a beginner, as you say in the beginning of the call. We are always beginner at some point, and I'm always beginner with OpenWISP, with some kind of technology that I have to implement. In the beginning, for me, it's always a new discovery. Somebody asks me, "Hey, can you implement this for us?" Okay, let me see. I go and study the RFC. Let me see how can I do this, and I go there and I do this. See here, I do these drawings on paper. Then I try to implement them, and I'm always a beginner. I'm always learning. So there's Python, there's Django, there's deploying, there's security, there's JavaScript, of course. There's also React and Node.js. We have something built with that. There's Linux, there's OpenWRT, there's C, because some things in OpenWRT, many things in Linux are built in C. So occasionally, it's not for us, we don't deal with C, but occasionally I had to deal also with C. So fixing compilation, adding small things. Um, there's a lot of shell scripting as well. There's a lot of restructured text and markdown documentation. There's a lot of work we also do to publish documentation, although it's still scarce from many points of view, but not too scarce. So we have a good chunk, especially each module has its own documentation. We are a little bit scarce on comprehensive user documentation, but every module is documented quite well from the point of view of a developer. So we also have a lot of checks, quality assurance checks. We check this documentation or check the automated test. So there's also a lot of QA. I don't know, Gagan, I'm forgetting anything. I'm sure there must be something more than that. Then there's Lua as well. We use Lua in OpenWRT to configure the router. And regarding the areas of OpenWISP, there's of course the controller, which controls the configurations, the access credentials to SSH into the device, which is optional, by the way. There's the monitoring system. There's the notification that Gagan worked on. There's Radius, Radius. So there's this API and web interface that integrates with FreeRadius, which is an implementation of the Radius protocol, which is used for authorization, authentication, and accounting. So it's used basically by ISPs to say, okay, Gagan has access to this network for this amount of time, maybe unlimited, for example. If it's limited, the software tracks how much traffic it generates, and so it will limit his connection if he overcomes that periodic limit. So okay, that's what Radius is. Then there's the firmware upgrader. So this module is focused on allowing to upgrade the firmware of the devices. That's a big problem in this industry because many operators just leave the old firmware forever, which then it's bugged and it's vulnerable, and the ISP network becomes a botnet. So one of the things that these companies need is a way to just mass upgrade everything in a way that is secure as well, and is also fault tolerant, because this system basically retries the upgrade if, for example, the upload goes wrong, or if the upgrade was not successful because the device didn't come back after the upgrade. It will let you know, it will alert you. Let me see the GitHub thing we have. On GitHub we have many repositories. If the viewers can add this, can see GitHub page is github.com/OpenWISP.
Yeah, I don't have. Okay, so you have provided the link. Okay, just 1 second. Yep.
If you open that, you will see that there's many other modules. There's Node.js thing for the captive page. There's a Python library for the configuration, for generating configurations. Another, there's a IP administration module for administering the subnets. There's a Docker repository where we are making sure that OpenWISP can be deployed on Docker and Kubernetes, and others.
So there is quite a wide range of a lot of projects. So one thing that I have already understood is that one do not have to be very limited to Python or Django only to contribute in OpenWISP. They can contribute with the help of JavaScript. They can contribute with the help of C. So they can have any skill, but if they want to contribute, they can be involved, and it doesn't matter if they are currently very good with networking concepts or not, but if they have some level of confidence and some level of dimension, they can start contributing with OpenWISP. And as you told that the growth is 360 degrees, so you just have to add up into the system, and gradually you will learn the other things because the documentation is good, and the documentation, as you told that modular documentation is good, and collective documentation, obviously, as more community comes in and collaborate, it will become much better as things move forward. So I think that is quite great for beginners because generally what happens for the beginners is that they have confidence in one dimension, but they're not very sure if to stick with the organization or not. But the problem that they have is if they have to change the whole skill set for a particular organization, for the very beginner things, they don't have the idea if they really have to put that much efforts or not for a single organization, right? But if they can simply get in and contribute with the skills they have at the moment, that is quite great because now they have to put up some initial tasks or some initial work, but finally that is providing them much better output. Right now they have that okay, this is the organization I want to work with because I'm liking the idea, I'm liking the environment, and specifically in terms of open sources, it is quite much about the environment that you get and that you get in the community, right? So that is quite great. So but I think a few students are asking if you guys have something related to Android, or if you guys will have in the future you guys will have something related to Android.
Android.
like some Android client or something like for maybe handling the request or something like that. So do you guys are also looking for Android students?
I think that at the moment, not, because it's not something that is so needed. These kind of applications are managed through the web interface. Back in the past, we had implemented an Android app that allowed the user to automatically log in without having to enter the username and password. But it was more like a workaround on an issue that it's going to be solved with other technologies. So
Okay.
I don't, unfortunately, on that, I don't think soon. So I don't
Okay.
think a useful time for you.
Right, but if someone want to work around and see things, so there can be like some suggestions, right? So if somebody want to suggest an app, if you guys are Android developer, you can still go through OpenWISP projects and browse around. And obviously if you have a particular suggestion like this kind of thing can be good if we can have an Android app for that, or this kind of thing can be good if you have an Android app for that, so you guys can browse through and you guys can put up some suggestions. And there can be some things that generally that not currently are looked upon, but when there is bulk of people thinking and browsing around, you guys can have some ideas and thoughts. So I think that kind of input will be good, right? If people want to suggest things.
Yeah, sure. We
Cool,
are
cool.
quite open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think many of the repositories in OpenWISP are usually requested by user, like monitoring, notification, then the Dockerized one. So, OpenWISP is really open for ideas. If users request it, like we don't mind working on that.
that is great. That is great. Uh, yeah, cool. There, this question.
As long as it's
Yeah,
useful
yeah.
for
Obviously,
somebody who
obviously.
Yeah,
uses the
obviously.
software.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
sometimes some GSoC proposals are quite weird. As admin, you
Yeah,
will have seen a lot of
definitely. I've
GSoC
seen
proposals. Yeah,
many things not going anywhere. And
yeah,
sometimes I also propose a few speculative ideas which I
yeah.
thought were good, but it's also important. The timing is also important because it's not just about developing something. It might
Okay,
be a very good idea, but maybe it's just not the time because the project doesn't have enough users, or the users that are there are in that moment they are not interested on that. They're interested in other things that are more important for them. So it's not only about developing something, because once you develop it, then you need to start using it really in the real world and to see how we improve it. Because otherwise, it's just you develop something, it's there, but nobody uses it, and you don't want to do that. You really don't want to do that. You want to work
right,
on stuff that is used by people, so that these people give you feedback, so you can keep improving it. Because nothing is perfect when you develop it. There's a lot of room for improvement, and one of the key skills to learn in this industry is that you have to improve. It's an iterative process. It's not a process in which you come up with something and it's done. No, it's several iterations.
yeah, right. Okay, so this is one of a generic question, but I think as a mentor, it will be great to hear it from you that as a beginner, it is boring to contribute, or we think it's time waste. But how to stay motivated for contribution? Because when you are starting with things, generally the initial part goes very slowly. Many times it take a month to get the first pull request merged. Sometime not the first pull request, sometimes the first pull request goes smoothly, but maybe the second or maybe the third. Initially you get stuck quite often, and that time duration where you are stuck, you are not feeling that things are moving forward. You generally feel maybe either overwhelmed, or you feel that it is not going anywhere. So how to deal with that, and how exactly to get interacted with mentors to get things resolved in such kind of you know atmosphere.
So I think that first and foremost step should be choose a project that aligns more to your values or which motivates you. Because if say that's why I chose OpenWISP. So I chose OpenWISP because it touches areas of computer networking which I had always been fond of. So that's why I chose OpenWISP. I and there were times for me that I wanted to, a PR was not, I was not at anywhere with an issue which I was solving. Like I don't know how I will go through it. I had no idea how to reproduce it, or even if I even able to reproduce it, what will be the best way to solve it. But the motivation came with OpenWISP, ideology that uh, kept me driving, and with smaller and smaller steps to gradually taking big issues and adding new features, so you can start your journey gradually instead of going, taking the toughest issue which is out there. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, great.
That's great. I like that. I like that. I would say something very similar. I mean, choose something that aligns with your tastes, your something you like, something you're interested, something that it needs to, it needs to turn on something inside you. Otherwise, I mean, what it's not like having to do something because you're obligated to. It's doing something because you like it. Okay, you must find it interesting.
Yeah.
Things we like. There's always tasks we don't like. It's just life. Sometimes some stuff are not fun, frustrating, and so on. So it's part of the process. But you have to know that when you are overwhelmed, that when you are frustrated, that's the time when you're growing, because you're getting out of your comfort zone. And it's very important. You have to do it. You just have to stick with it, to insist patiently. Take your time. It's not a don't feel like it's a competition. Take your time. You will slowly, okay, gradually, especially gradually, by keeping to learning things, studying. Whenever there's something you don't understand, go and look about that. I mean, look into it. Look for the subject. Ask your mentors for guidance. For example, in OpenWISP, I'm suggesting books to Gagan and others all the time. Books, resources. I give them links. For example, there was a student which was struggling with the abstraction layers we have. So I gave him links to study what an abstraction layer is. I gave them books about design patterns, because guys, the stuff we are doing is not easy. It's not easy. This is not easy. If you think about it, I always say this: we are just a little bit more than monkeys, and we are doing this stuff. We are doing blockchains, we are doing networks, we are doing satellites. I mean, now, a little while ago, we were just monkeys. And we are doing this. Our brain is not made to do this, but we are doing it anyway. We are doing it anyway. So, and why we're doing? Because we need it to. We like it. We need it. We want to progress. And how we do it? We do it by putting effort in thinking, and that process, it's growth. It's painful. It's frustrating, but it's also fun, because if you stick with it and you keep studying and learning and experimenting and improving yourself, seeking feedback for others, then you will improve, and you will see that what before you couldn't do, now you can do it, and then it will be fun. So yeah, just stick with it. But yeah, as Gagan said, choose something that you like, that interests you, that inflames you, that turns you on, because otherwise it will just be boring.
That is so true. And now we'll be switching to the most interesting part of the session, because that will, help you push, yourself in the project, and that is the demo part, right? So Federico and Gagan will be helping you guys out in, how exactly to set up the
Be right
environment and
back.
do the
I
things.
just
Yeah,
realized
sure.
something.
Yeah, just sure. So They'll be helping you guys with setting up the things, how exactly, if you guys want to contribute to the project, this part is the most important part for you guys, because this will help you in all the parts. Because generally when you start to contribute with the open source project, the toughest part is the most the beginning part, where you have to set up the environment, where you have to understand the project, how exactly to do the things, how, what exactly to do. Okay, so, and where to find things, where to locate things, and all this part is quite complicated for newcomers. And right now Federico and Gagan will help you out with all this process, so you guys don't have to worry about in the very first steps that you have to take when you start to contribute with OpenWISP. And the stage is yours. So you can share your screen now so that we can move forward with that. Cool. Let me just add it. Cool. Yay, we are in the system. And obviously guys, you can keep on asking the questions in the chat, and some of the questions Gagan will handle side by side on the chat itself. We will not be catering all the questions with the audio, because many questions are not not all the questions can be answered in the audio at the same time. But Gagan will try to answer as many as questions in the chat itself, and the remaining questions that we cannot answer at the moment, we will put them, we will do them in the end. There's a question from name can't be blank, that is should we follow along with the demo? You don't have to follow along the demo, you just have to understand how exactly things are happening. Obviously you will have this video for later on to see and use, so don't worry about it. So stage is yours, Federico.
Sorry, I was not audible. I just realized now.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe I want to show. Can you stop the screen sharing?
Yeah, sure. Just
please?
1 second. Yep.
Okay, great. So I just realized I had turned on the wrong device, because I have many here. Okay. And I have two that look exactly the same. I just wanted to show the devices I use for testing. This is one. It's called Unicor, but OpenWRT is supported on really a lot of hardware. There's also hardware that is smaller and cheaper. There's $10, $15, $20 devices. So just to let you know that you can find a cheap router to play with. Even a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi can be flashed with OpenWRT and can be used. Okay, so now we can start again.
Let me add the stream. Yep, I've added it. Some students are asking to increase the font size.
Okay. Let's show the device list here in this system. This is a staging system that I use for testing. I have one router here at home, which is on. This is this one. You can see the interface is pretty much Django, with customizations that are done to implement what we need. I decided to push this way of doing things to just use the Django admin, because it's fast for us. We can focus on making sure that the backend features work very well. Over time, it's becoming more and more stable. And I'm sure that very soon, in the near future, we will implement a new front end once all these backend features work. We have a few features that are pretty new. Like, for example, here we have the charts. So this device was offline, and for this reason, it's showing empty. The possibility to upgrade the firmware. which can be done singularly or massively from another point in the system. So these are pretty new things, and we are adding new backend features like this all the time. For example, now we have a lot of fine-grained controls for the alerts. For example, we have an alert that alerts us if the disk usage goes over 80% or the CPU usage goes over 90%, and so on. Or, for example, if the configuration of the device is not applied. This was one of the first features of OpenWISP. When you select the different configuration templates or edit the device configuration here, the device status goes into modified, and then there's an agent on the device which applies it properly. If that is not working for some reason, the monitoring now will find out and will alert you. That's the check. It's called config applied, sorry, here. So these kind of things tell you, allow you to basically control how you get these alerts. You can disable a specific alert for all the users, or you can, for example, if you're having a particular metric that is flapping or that is going up and down all the time, you can increase the tolerance. For example, you can put 30 minutes, and you won't receive alerts if that metric changes for an amount of time that is less than the tolerated amount. So if the device goes down for 5 minutes, you won't receive an alarm, and so on. What Gagan did recently was this part of the notifications. He developed this great widget. I love it. I mean, I'm so happy of the result. We spent quite some time on it. We spent at least 2 months in improving this. I gave him a lot of suggestions, and I also put my hands on it a few times, but the result is really good. The result is really good. We can flag the notifications as read. We can show only the unread. Now I don't have any unread notification. And it's nice also because when something happens, it pops something here, like an overlay comes up, which tells you what's happening, which is basically the same thing shown here. We have added quite a few notifications for the different use cases. We made also the notifications more user-friendly, because before we had a generic message for each notification, which was something like, it was funny. It was like the ping is not within the threshold, something like that, or ping return within the threshold. So each metric that had an alert was having the same message but just different name. Now with this, in this iteration, with thanks to Gagan's work and also another student's Hardik's work, which worked on the monitoring, we improved this part. It's really great. So we can also disable the checks, or in the new version, it's not available here. It's possible to silence notifications for a certain amount of time, like on WhatsApp groups. For example, in WhatsApp groups, you can disable notification for 1 day, for 1 week, for 1 month, and we did the same here. So we added a button. It's not visible here, but it will be available in the new version. And of course, there's other things like map. It's possible to, for example, specify where the location. It's possible to specify, for example, floor plans. Let me see if there's anything. I'm not sure in this system there's anything available. Yes. Here you can also select a floor plan. For example, here you can put the device on the map, outdoor and indoor. And of course, the configuration part is the most powerful part. These are the templates. The templates are prepared beforehand, and they're usually the same for all the devices. Some templates may contain variables. The variables then depend, the content of the variables can change depending on things that are inserted here, or It could be, they could be managed automatically by the system, or specific configuration can be defined in the device itself, and so on. So here we have these templates. We have the management VPN, which allows the system to get in touch, to reach the device no matter where the device is. So the device is in my home, but the server is in Europe, and I am now in Latin America, but the system is able to connect to it anyway. The monitoring, which specifies the monitoring software scripts to perform the monitoring, the SSH keys that are authorized for access, traffic VPN, which is the VPN that tunnels the traffic of the Wi-Fi through the captive portal, and the SSID. Let me see if we can show you the public Wi-Fi SSID. I surely cannot show it to you on the laptop, because otherwise I would lose connection and then I would not be able to stream, but I can do it on the phone. So for example, here I just connected to the SSID, and yeah, now a captive page is showing. Okay, so it asked me to log in. I cannot just browse the network without login, unfortunately, because in Italy they're quite serious about breaking the law with public networks, so they want you to authenticate, and authentication requires a phone number which is linked to an ID document. So if anybody does anything wrong, there will be caught. So I logged in now. And now that I logged in, I can browse the web again. So I just open the newspaper here, and it works. And I will also show you the session that I started here in the system. Here in free radius accountings, we will see that there should be a new session just started. Let me double check it's correct. It looks it's correct. Okay, yes, it is. There's no stop time here. This was what I was looking for. So I just started this session, and we have some information about, for example, the access point. We have the information of, this is the MAC address of my device, and the local IP address. And of course, we also have the information of how much traffic is being used, which is the input and output octets, which now is really low because I just started. And from here, I can see basically the users that are logged in. But if we go back to the device as well, in a short time, we should start seeing more information here. Although there's something which is not working exactly perfectly, which I should look into it. But maybe we can talk a little bit more. If anybody has some questions, I can see what's going on in the device and fix it. I wanted to show something more about the monitoring information, which now is not showing.
Generally, it is quite common during the demos, because a lot of things are happening at the same time. A lot of things are.
And the fact is also that I work on
the
this system, so I change stuff all the time. Sorry for that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true, because it is like nightly build, the daily build, right? So, so that is quite common thing. Okay, so
Yeah,
Gagan, were
I'm
you
just
saying
saying
something?
that the monitoring part is quite interesting because the way it works actually it it give you the feel what is happening right inside your device. So that's really interesting. And the one thing that Federico talked about, the notification widget, and that was a great improvement. I will say it so. Apart from that, there is real-time notifications, and one more thing, that is like GitHub or any other emailing services, you can just check off emails, which notifications you want to receive. Like if you want to receive ping notification related to ping or CPU usage, you can just check on that and leave leave other details off, so you won't get bothered. And the one thing which Frederick was also talking about, that the button which shows over the device page, so it lets you close, snooze notification for particularly only that device. Maybe it is possible that some device is malfunctioning, so it is creating lots of notifications, and you're getting emails and you're spammed with them. So you can just turn off notifications while you're investigating further.
That certainly makes sense because and especially there can be a dampening as well, right? Do you guys already have the dampening feature? Like we should not have multiple notifications during this part because if it is down, then it is down. Then let's not push notifications for that. Such kind of thing.
So the system does not send a notification if something has not changed. It only
Okay.
sends notifications when something changes. But we have an issue that I created recently. I want to batch notifications because if something big happens, like imagine an electricity outage in the city and all the device goes down, you start receiving many notifications, many alerts.
Yeah.
So we will work on that in the future to batch them and say something like, if there are more than 3 emails being sent, batch them and send just one email after 20 minutes. Wait 20 minutes and just send one. So this is something we don't have, but we will add because it's really needed, because when this happens, it's really painful. I've
Yeah.
experienced it a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't send. I mean, we only send notifications when it's useful.
The state is changed, and yeah. So because I was just thinking about that because when I was a GSoC student, I was working in a monitoring system, but that was a server monitoring system. That was about the server resources and all the things that are corresponding to the servers. That is like if memory is full, and these kind of monitoring was there. So there was let me just add your. Should I add your stream?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me know when
Okay.
it's.
Okay, cool. Okay, so it is added. So what I was telling is that we had like matrices and resources. So when I'm looking at this, a lot of things seems quite related to that. Like you guys are talking about more about hardware and networking. It was more toward the servers, but like matrices part, triggers part, and notifications part, quite many things seems quite related to the things like the server monitoring system. That is quite
Okay.
good.
I wanted to show a little bit more
Yes.
about this part, that it's basically the core part, one of the first things we implemented, the configuration part. A nice thing that it's more aimed at skilled people who know a little bit of OpenWRT. Here you can see basically the how the configuration that you are preparing in OpenWISP is going to be rendered on the device to double check if it's correct. And the part that was missing was the status part. For some reason, the script on the device was not firing. Was a very simple thing to fix. I just had to log in into the device and run a command and ensure the cron is loaded. So now we have information about the uptime, the CPU usage, the last measurement of the CPU usage, RAM usage, and also disk usage, and informations about the interfaces. For example, here we have a bridge interfaces, which bridges these 3 interfaces. So the top 0 is the traffic layer 2 VPN. The WLAN 0 and 1 is the 2 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So they are all bridged together. This means that when you connect to the Wi-Fi, your traffic goes into the VPN basically, and the VPN, when it terminates to the captive portal, which then basically it's a firewall that you have to authenticate in the captive portal to get authorization and go through. And yeah, other interfaces, and also the Wi-Fi. There should be below information about the Wi-Fi interface. Here we know, for example, the channel, frequency, transmission power. And we know the connected client. So this is me. I'm using this device here. The other SSID, it's basically no one is connected. The neighbors is the ARP table. So this is the status tab, which tells you, which gives you information about what's going on in the device right now. But then we have the charts, which show you the historical data. So you know now we have a green bar because we turn it on. Let's go to the 1 day time frame. So the bars are a little bit bigger. Packet loss, you see now it's 0 because there's no packet loss. But when there's a connection issue, this may go higher. It may not go to 100% because 100% means it's offline, but it may be 20, 30 or 40%. When you get this kind of packet loss, you know something is wrong and you have to debug. Same thing as round trip time. If it's too high, you have to check what's going on because there's something wrong. Here we have the number of connected clients. So it's just me right now. So it's 1. Connected clients to this other SSID, it's 0. Then we have traffic. I'm not doing a lot of traffic right now. You can see that all the interfaces are pretty empty. There's not a lot of traffic. CPU load also, it's almost 0. There's nothing going on. So it's pretty empty as well. Disk usage is also low, and so on. So this is for the charts part, which now are working properly. We can export data in CSV format. We can go on different time frames. For example, one of the things that we want to implement is to allow to a more fine-grained control of these settings, to specify a data range, for example, to move freely back and forth, which now is not possible. It would be cool to do that. There's many things we can do, really, many things we can improve. But this is for the monitoring part. This is mainly what you have to know. I can show you, for example, another interesting thing is when you add a new device into the system and you register into the system. I just add a dummy MAC address and I just insert these things. So you just have to put the name of the device and the MAC address, or if the firmware is compiled in a certain way, you don't need to do this. The device will automatically adopt itself into the system. When you create it, what happens is that a lot of stuff is performed behind the scenes because the system has been configured previously to automate all sort of things. So you don't need to do anything to activate, for example. In this case, this system is configured to bring up the public Wi-Fi configuration. So here, when the device registers, when this thing I showed before registers into the system, what it will do is it will create a new configuration by default and save it. So if we do it manually, we have to do it manually now, but usually it's not the case. So once the device registers, it does that. It saves the configuration and also sends a notification here. It says the device registers successfully. And so you get all the default configurations that create all the necessary things for the public Wi-Fi to work. And it's not just the same configuration for every device. There are some parts that are specific to the device. So this configuration now has created 2 SSL certificates for the VPN for the device. that are specific for this device, but it all happens behind the scenes. The user doesn't see this. But if you wanted to do this manually, you had not only to copy the configuration here, but you had to create two SSL certificates and provision the VPN yourself, which is something which is very error prone, and it's something that every organization and company I work with, when they have to provision VPNs, if they do it manually or even if they do it with scripts, it's always painful for them. But this is something that OpenWISP does quite easily, because we've been doing it since forever. It was done since the first version of OpenWISP. It was implemented very well back then as well. So that's something we do well. And I suggest anybody that has to do this kind of thing to just stop reinventing the wheel and use something like OpenWISP. OpenWISP is not the only solution that does this, but is as far as I know, is the only solution that allows you to do it with very, very minimum effort. I mean, once the firmware is compiled, you flash it on a device, and the device just registers itself, and it does all these things automatically. And then also the monitoring checks are created automatically, and when the device starts doing traffic and doing things, you will see a similar situation to here, in which you will see the status being reported and the charts being created and logged. So I think that's for the demo. I want to leave some time, if there is some time, for questions or whatever.
Yeah, so we can have some questions, and the one question that we have got is, do we have a kind of simulation as well? Because right now we getting static part is quite additional to the hardware, but do we also have simulations like where we do not really need an hardware? We can simply go with the simulation only?
Sure, it's possible. Well, Gagan, maybe you can.
Yeah, most of the time, most of my journey, I have been using OpenWRT the OpenWRT firmware installed on VirtualBox, and then you can use it as a device. So I've been most of my development I've been doing using that only. So if you are a beginner, you just don't need to come up with a device upfront. You can play with the VirtualBox for a while, and you can develop using it and test various things using it as well.
Okay, so additionally, Gagan, we were talking about the flashing the device for putting up the OpenWISP firmware. So the same thing can happen to the virtual machine, right? The virtual box can handle all these kind of things.
Yeah, but actually, the OpenWRT documentation has documented it pretty well. You have to just copy the lines from there and paste it on your machine, or they have even pictures showing where to find which setting, and it is just follow along, and you will get your OpenWRT device. The part where the OpenWISP comes in, it is documented on OpenWISP website, and there are only few. You have to just install OpenWISP controller on the machine, and then you have just couple of things to do. One or two things you have to just set up that organization ID, or you can flash it. But for virtual machine, I don't think that it will be more logical to create a custom firmware and test it. But you can develop do the development on the virtual machine also.
Yeah, you guys don't need to create a firmware as a first step. You just follow a few steps in the documentation, which tells you the commands. You download the package for the agent. Just install the agent, and also you can use vanilla OpenWRT. Install the agent, configure one or two things, the URL and the shared secret. Then the device registers itself.
That's great. And Gagan, can you also, as some of the students are requesting it, can you put up some, one more session more targeted toward the code? Because some of the students are like that. They are happy and they are willing to contribute, but still they are having some doubt if they will go and try things, but they will have some issues, right? How to set up the virtual machine, and how, well, obviously setting up the virtual machine is fine, but how to set up you know the virtual machine that is expected to have, and how to do things with that. So can we expect a session with you on that soon enough?
Yeah, sure. I would love to do that. And I think this is one of the things which I struggled during my, beginning time. And I would love if I can help with, some people with that.
That is great. Okay, so I think that will be great, because we have gone through what exactly OpenWISP can do, how exactly things are happening, and in the demo we have seen quite a lot of things that can be done, and how exactly they can because the first thing that any person should do as a developer of a particular project is to use the distribution, and use it as a user, right? As Federico even told in the very beginning, like, if you're not user of a thing, you cannot become the contributor, right? So first become the user, go through the steps that Federico have shown you guys, use the distribution, run along with the steps, and follow through everything. And if you get stuck, Gagan and Federico and whole the Wisp community can help you sorry, can help you guys with that. And one important thing is that can you guys also provide some links and places? Obviously we will add that to the description as well, like where these guys where students should reach you, because they will have a lot of questions. So is there a channel, is there a mailing list, or some place where they can put up all the questions that they have in their mind, how to exactly get started, and how to get their doubt resolved and everything when they get started with OpenWisp?
Yeah, sure. Federico has already shared the support channels
Yeah.
earlier also. So
Yes.
that links our mailing list and our GitHub channel. And our GitHub channel is really very active. There are always fellow community members and developers hanging on there, and your queries will be easily quickly resolved. And if you face any problem, then you can surely ask us there. And I will also like to share here, just give me a minute, documentation which is related to Hacktober.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I suggest people to get in touch with us via the general chat, which we share the link. It's reachable if you guys go to openwis.org and then go to support. It's listed there. There's a link. It's also linked from the GitHub repositories. So we are there. I also spend some time there every day to try to help out. But there's also other people, Gagan and other contributors who help us out. And occasionally, some depending on the time zone, we may not reply very, very fast. It depends on what time you connect and who you find. But yeah, usually it's pretty fast nowadays. But we also have a mailing list for asynchronous communication if anybody needs help, asynchronous help. But usually the chat now it's good for quick questions, for quick clarifications.
So Gitter link is available on the support link, or yeah, cool. So
In the
Gitter link is
support page,
available there.
yes.
Yeah, cool. And I'm also providing the link that Gagan have provided in the
I'll give you
box.
also the direct Gitter link.
Cool. So yeah, great, great. And this.
Oh yes, we also prepared a page for the Oktoberfest. It's really basic. The main concept we wanted to stress there is to dissuade people from trying to score pull request by just changing minor things. And the problem that is being discussed in the community now about the spam of Oktoberfest. So we just wanted to make sure that people understand that we cannot waste our time with that kind of thing. But until now, we didn't get any spam, so we're pretty happy about it. But I
Yeah.
understand it can be a problem with very, very popular open source projects.
Yeah, spam is quite a big issue, but what I generally feel is that we cannot really, undermine event like Hacktoberfest for spams, because whenever something great happens, some smaller issues will come along, some smaller failures will come along, but still, the spirit of Hacktoberfest is high, and everyone should participate in Hacktoberfest. Try to make better pull requests, try to create better impact with your contributions. Don't worry, some of the students, some of the people will always do some stuff that will not comfort the community, but finally, if it is a good event, if it is a good thing, finally we will make something awesome with it. Finally we will generate something great with it, and that is the spirit of open source. That is the spirit that we had during Google Summer of Code, during Hacktoberfest, and during every all the events. The spirit is high, and we will contribute a lot. We will finally build something that makes sense. And additionally, when we talk to college students, specifically point this one thing, that when you do not participate in open source, when you only participate in things which finally only lead to your job placement and these kind of thing, you do not prepare yourself for things that you like. You only prepare yourself for the salary part, but you do not prepare yourself for exploration, what you may like, what you may want to do, what you really want to do as your career choices, right? Because if you simply learn some programming languages, learn some framework, you really haven't tried some things that really affect your life or life of people, right? So when you really contribute in open source, things are quite different, things are really different, and things are long lasting than the normal internships and normal things that you do in your college or after college, right? So specifically, I will suggest that, as I say myself, I'm open source enthusiast. Become open source enthusiast and contribute, and gain the benefit, not just contribute, because it is not like it is a box where you're just putting things. It is a box where anyone can put things and anyone can get things out, and you are already taking things out. You are already using a lot of open source softwares, guys. You are using, when we talk about phones, you guys are using Android phones. When we talk about all the services that you guys are using, those services are being provided by Linux systems. Generally it is the statistics that 100% of the supercomputers right now are Linux computers, right? And 95% of the server deployment servers are Linux servers. So you guys are using open source a lot already. You guys are using a lot of, even if you are using iPhone rely on a lot of open source. So whatever you're using behind the scene, you're using a lot of open source. So why not get the benefit in terms of development as well? So when you are a developer, get the benefit by participating. Okay, so you're not simply just contributing, you're not simply just putting in, you're getting things out as well. Because when you are a developer and you're participating in open source, you are increasing your skills, you're increasing your reach, you're increasing your network, and at the same time, finally, even if you want to go for job and all the things that you have done in open source finally look good on your resume, that you have finally, you already know how to work with the team, you already know how to use CI/CD, you already know how to write good integratable and unit test and integration test code, and these kind of things will really shine on your resume. So that is a great thing to have, and just put your energy into it. And Federico and Gagan will always help you guys out when you are moving forward with it, and you will find a lot of awesome people from OpenWISP community when you join them. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I'm not seeing many questions here, so that's it. Really loved having you guys here, and really hoping many of the awesome contributors will reach you guys for participating in the projects.
Thank you very much for having us.
It was pleasure
Thank you.
being a part of this and celebrating open source with all pioneers like you, Federico, and it's like thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank you. Let's code for cause.
I look
Bye,
forward
guys.
to see
Yes.
more people in
Yes.
OpenWISP. Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. A lot of
It's the best training you can have, really. Like
Yes.
you said, Anuj, it's the
Yeah.
best training for increasing skills, and Gagan will be able to tell you. If you have any question, reach him. He will. I think he will be happy to share his experience. He also wrote a blog post about it. So yeah, we are very open to new contributors and helping out other people to improve the skills.
Gagan?
Yeah, no, nothing from my side. But yeah,
Yeah. So you have a blog, like Federico said. So we can put up that
yeah,
blog in the description. So you can later
Yeah,
send me the link, and
I
we can put
suggest
up
doing that.
that blog in the description. Yeah. Cool. So that's great, and that's it. I suggest everyone to go take a look at OpenWISP GitHub page and explore the things, take a look at things, and wherever you get stuck, you can reach out to Gagan. Gagan, can you also provide your Twitter so that people can reach you there?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So Gagan will provide the Twitter. I will also add it on the description for the people who are finding things later on. Federico, I will also take your Twitter from Gagan, and I will also put it there. Is it all right
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
if I put up your Twitter on the description?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So I will add up the Twitter of Federico and Gagan in the description, and you guys can reach them out there. And for like any questions and things, you can reach them down there. Okay, cool. See you guys, and really awesome having both of you here, and really awesome. Uh, Pandafai, do you? I'm seeing some additional dots at the end.
Yeah, actually, I was not able to get Pandafy on Twitter. So that's underscore Pandafy underscore
Oh, that is
OJ.
underscore. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Underscore Pandafy underscore cool. Cool. And this is the second one. And I will also add them on the description. So thank you guys and see you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. What you're doing is great. Keep doing it. I hope to see more of this.
Yep, certainly. And guys, we will
Have
be
a great
having
weekend.
yes, have to all of you have a great weekend, and we'll be having more such events. We have same kind of event planned on the 14th with Terrasolology, and we have one event with TARDIS that is about you know explosion of stars. That is something great to talk about, and we have much more events coming up. So guys, stay tuned for that, and that's it. Bye.
Thank you very much.